Welcome to the Dr. Bowser Basketball Show, powered by Sports Guys Iowa. Today, we have Mike Shrock, the Director of Prospect Development at Upper Iowa University. Mike also is the color commentary for men's and women's basketball for the Peacocks. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Mike, today we really want to dive into girls basketball in the state of Iowa and maybe just talk a little bit deeper about ways to grow the game in the state. We've seen a decline in participation numbers over the course of the last few years, but maybe talk to us a little bit about your history with women's basketball in the state of Iowa, and then we'll dive into some solutions to grow the game in the state.
Yeah, my history is this. A student at Upper Iowa University, I needed something to do with my spare time, so I jumped on with the women's basketball team as a student assistant coach. I did that for 4 years, went away, and then was called back by the head coach to come back and be the full-time assistant at Upper Iowa. And I was very fortunate. I did that for a year. And fortunately, we actually set the school record for number of wins that year, and it still stands today. Then once I got back established into my community at Center Point, Urbana, I started to get back into coaching again. And coaching, I took a group of girls from 4th grade all the way through 8th grade and just coached them all the way through and really enjoyed that. But at the same time, what we're talking about today was starting to see that decline in participation from that youth level through high school. It's been something that's been heavy and on my mind and something I've been very passionate about for a long time.
Thank you for that history. John and I were talking earlier a little bit. I went to Dorscott High School, which, yes, is a 4A school, but Eldridge is a small community. And we talked about back in the day on a Tuesday night or a Friday night or a Saturday night, if the boys were at home, the girls were on the road at the same school. And it allowed a space where you could have a sophomore JV girls game and then the varsity game. And so it was really an event centered around girls basketball or boys basketball. And it was right around that time, or maybe just a little after, that high school administrators, athletic administrators started to say, you know what, we could maybe save a little bit of money if we just said, we're going to host everybody at one place on one night. And now you've got maybe the varsity girls playing in the afternoon and the boys playing at 7:30. And you've got the freshman, sophomore playing in a different gym. And I will say that from an efficiency standpoint, maybe that these schools are saving a little bit of money on buses and referees and stuff like that. But is that maybe one of the things that started this downhill? My brother lives in Gladbrook, Rhinebeck. He's got 3 daughters. They play basketball. Their games are at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And so trying to get kids and parents and community members to those games has got to be tough.
Yeah, I think the one thing that did to combine everything kind of at one location or one area, I think what that really did is that helped bring more of the crowds in. Rather than, I know in our community, we had a lot of splitting up. So they had a daughter that was playing in Central DeWitt, but yet the Central DeWitt boys and their son were playing at home. So the parents would oftentimes have to split. This made it so the parents could be there at the same time and watch both of their kids. And so it solved that problem. When you look at participation, the decreasing participation of girls basketball, I think when you look at it from like a 8,000 foot level, there's just so many different things that come into play. I've talked to different coaches. I've talked to actually different athletes who have played and then have quit before they got into high school, and just trying to figure out what the formula is. And there's so many things, because I'm a solutions guy. Like, I want to figure out what this is and see if we can make it better and get that participation level back up there, because basketball is great. And I love when athletes play and I love when our kids participate. But there's so many different variables that it's hard to just pinpoint just one as being that major contributor.
I would add, human beings want simple answers. You want black, you want white, you don't like shades of gray. I think this is a situation where you got a lot of really small moves that have been done. And Chris, you were talking about how when it used to be girls would go to one town and the boys would have the home game, that created what I call an evening for the girls. So if you were just a parent, right, you weren't connected and you just loved the school, you could go to a game on Tuesday night, see the girls, you can get the boys on Friday, all of them. And I think overall that sort of has maybe changed it. And in most school districts now, the girls are first. I think putting them first makes it harder for parents to get there, and the boys are second. And I think that's a small move that had good fiscal sense, but long term maybe hurt some interest in the game. I think that's one area where I think it's a really key that they look at. The other thing, Mike, a lot's changed in 20 years. Now we're on the back end of getting the ARP mailings, right? All of us.
Yeah.
But we're living like we're 25 years old on our phones. You've got to reach people differently. And I don't think the social media game has caught up with it yet. I think you've got to be really creative about how you reach young people and communicate to them. And not just young people, everyone. The more people you get in a gym, the more exciting it is. I think the more you keep girls.
I don't disagree. We talk about some of the other sports that are growing, and the state of Iowa has started women's wrestling. Volleyball participation is almost double that of girls basketball. And John, you've talked about this with me before, is that volleyball is one of those sports that it's very exciting, and it's exciting point after point. And I think maybe there is a perception that maybe basketball isn't as exciting, or it's not as much fun to play as volleyball.
What do you think, Mike?
I think there could be that. You talk about schools that are traditionally good at basketball. There's an excitement there that kind of leaks down into your middle school and even into your youth basketball. I will say that Center Point Urbana there for a while, when we were dealing with the Woolridge sisters and Adriana Ketcher and Riley Goebel, we were going to the state tournament just about every year, and there was a lot of excitement. But with that, we had a really good youth program as well. And I don't say that just because I was part of it, but we had some great coaches in there that were working with our middle school and our high school coaches to keep these girls excited about playing basketball and having success. So I think that has a little bit to do with it as well.
Yeah. And Mike, one thing I was thinking about in this call, I was sitting there thinking about, okay, the structural issues are harder to take care of. The club sports, the volleyball, the softball, that's harder to take care of. But one thing you can do is create more excitement. One thing, I'm not a Hawkeye fan, but one thing that I like that the Hawkeyes do every year for football is they have a Fry Fest. They kick off the year with a bunch of preseason stuff. I think Iowa girls need something like that, a kickoff. We were talking about holiday tournaments. They need something that creates excitement, where you've got a bunch of young people out promoting it. You've got an event that kicks off. That's an area that I think can only be addressed if the Girls Association allows more games.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some sort of preseason kickoff event.
Yeah. And let's face it, college basketball, especially at the Division I level in the state of Iowa, is through the roof. Everybody talks about the Caitlin Clark effect. I would go a step further and say the Audie Crooks effect as well. We've got excellent programs at Drake and UNI, and Tanya Warren has done a fantastic job at UNI. We have that excitement from those. And here's my hot take from the day, but I don't think that we're going to see the effect of the Caitlin Clark effect or the Audie Crooks effect until a few years down the road here. A lot of those kids that were excited about Caitlin and are excited about Audie Crooks are still in middle school. And we're hoping that their excitement will stay there and that will continue to lift them up into high school basketball. But the Caitlin Clark effect, if you will, I don't think it really changed any minds of any girls that were currently in high school. It didn't make them want to go out. I think they felt like maybe their basketball ship has sailed. But I'm holding on to a lot of hope here that those girls who stood in line for those autographs, who painted their faces, made the signs, got excited for Caitlin Clark and are doing the same thing for Audie Crooks over there in Ames, will keep that excitement and again, keep them playing basketball all 4 years in high school.
I certainly hope so. That would be phenomenal. I have two daughters, and they are huge basketball fans and now WNBA fans, but neither one of them played. And I didn't want to be the kind of dad that said, I'm a basketball junkie, you have to play basketball. But they found their own sports. I think that I'm hopeful also that what you're saying will come to fruition, is that you've got all these kids that maybe are basketball hungry from those years, from maybe the junior and senior year of Caitlin Clark and the Iowa run to 2 Final Fours, national championship games, and then Iowa State as well. They've always been good. One of the things I want to piggyback on what John said earlier. Can you imagine if we had some corporate sponsors across the state of Iowa in places like the Quad Cities, Dubuque, Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Des Moines, even Marshalltown, Fort Dodge, Council Bluffs, and Sioux City? If we had arenas that were hosting preseason girls basketball tournaments to match up teams from east, west, north, and south, and to make it really a media event and kick off the season. Mike, talk to us a little bit about what you think could be if we had something like that going.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you why I say absolutely, because here in Cedar Rapids, they host Rivalry Saturday. And it is a fantastic lineup all day of schools playing each other. And there's good schools matched up against other good schools. You don't see jumping a couple classes, but you'll see a Northwind play somebody like a Benton Community, a little bit of a class differential there. But you get a full day of great games. And it's one of those things where you can go and buy a ticket and sit there all day. You're guaranteed great games. And the excitement in the arena, the girls love to play in it. Our area sports writers, Jeff Linder, who does a fantastic job. He's there. He covers the whole thing. And it's really a big deal. They used to hold it in Coe's Fieldhouse. They've been holding it at Kirkwood, which hooray for Kim Mull. He's able to get an early look at some recruits there if he's hanging around the gym. But either place has been fantastic. And again, it's just, we don't see a lot of teams come from the Western side. It's more of your Eastern Iowa teams, I think, do basically to travel. But what a fantastic day. And I would absolutely be behind more things like that. I know that on the boys' side, they have the crossover where Cedar Rapids, Des Moines schools are playing each other. And I believe John McCowan was one that really said, hey, we need to do this. I think the girls need somebody on their side, a coach, somebody that's got a voice that matters, that says, hey, let's do this. Let's do a cross-state rivalry Saturday or something like that. And let's draw fans from all over the state of Iowa together and really show everybody how exciting basketball is, not only in your area, but across the entire state.
Yeah, Mike, I would say the one challenge to that is the 21 games. This year with the boys, I had a chance to go to almost all the crossover classics, the one in Des Moines, the one in Council Bluffs, the one in Cedar Rapids. That was because the team I was following had a coach that wanted to play in those, and he gave up 3 regular season games to go do that. But some of the best teams in Des Moines said, hey, we don't want to risk the loss. They didn't do it because they were like, hey, we only got 21 games. That's why I think expanding the games in a way that makes it more impactful, I think would be helpful. If you had 2 more games that you'd go play in these, that you could add only if you played there, then you would get teams that would do it.
Yeah. If you're going to play in this, we won't count it against your games. And we want you to play in this because it will help grow the sport.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think like at the college level, they call those exempt games. You get into those exempt tournaments, and playing into the tournament still counts, but I think it's 30 games, regular season games for men's and women's basketball. But when you play in one of those exempt tournaments, that you get a couple of extra games and be challenged, right? And you want to get your teams onto television at the college level, but you want to get them out there, right? I think like the state of Illinois allows 31 games per season for girls basketball, and Missouri, just to the south, allows 24. And I can tell you, this is my second time living in Missouri, and Springfield, Missouri hosts 2 tournaments, the blue and gold and the pink and white. And they start the day after Christmas and they go through New Year's. And one is for boys basketball, one's for girls basketball. And it creates a ton of excitement. And it's teams from all over Southwest Missouri. I think that's really great. The other thing, too, is that Iowa schools haven't historically done this, but playing in tournaments, when you maybe have the ability to do that, by having some extra games in a classic in Chicago over the holiday, or even just a single game. John, I know Waukee Northwest played a team out of Wisconsin this year.
Yeah. On the boys' side, they gave up a regular season game, played the number 2 team. They lost in a close game, but I commend the coach for doing it. Yeah. But they had to arrange that like special.
Yeah.
Mike, Johnston girls have won 74 games in a row. If they were to go out of state and play or have a tournament near where other teams could come and play them, they would draw fans like crazy to that.
Yeah.
And that program would embrace that opportunity.
Yeah,
How we get them to have exempt games, to have that opportunity, the media coverage would be great. It would grow the game.
Yeah, if we had something like that. And another thing that I was thinking about as you were describing that, John, is getting back to the student athlete experience. If Johnson were to travel, let's say, up to the Twin Cities to play Maddie Greenway and her squad up there, what an experience as a high school basketball player to be able to go up there and play on what would probably be a nationally televised high school basketball game. But even on a lower level, just taking that trip, making those memories with your teammates and your coach, and being able to play somebody that you don't see in every sport, every season, just a different opportunity might also grow interest for girls to stay out.
Mike, we've thrown a couple of ideas out there. What else is percolating around your mind? Any ideas on that we can continue to grow the game?
Personally, I would really like to see, and I've seen more of this lately, but Iowa has had a tradition of some really fantastic high school girls basketball players. And we're starting to see some of those basketball players who have now aged, like all of us on this podcast, come back and give back to the game and are taking coaching positions.
Yeah.
And I think that is really huge for the game. Not only are you getting coaches in there that know what they're talking about, who have been there, done that, also are female and can relate with the female student athletes. I just like seeing that young lady who came back and is coaching at Williamsburg now has done a fantastic job there. And the more and more female coaches we see at the high school level, I think the more and more we start to possibly see more girls staying out, more girls being invested. And at the end of the day, whether they go on to play college basketball or not, they feel like they got something out of the program. Because let's face it, not everybody's going to go on and play college basketball. Although if you want to play college basketball, the state of Iowa is Division III, Division II, NAIA. We've got some really great teams and some really great coaches. But I think at that high school level, the more female coaches that we get involved, I think would really help grow the game.
I think so too. One thing that we talked about, John and I, previously was not only varsity tournaments, but maybe JV tournaments or eighth grade tournaments. Maybe at the end of an eighth grade year, there's an eighth grade state tournament to be able to just offer more opportunities to compete when the stakes are higher. All of us have been around the game for a long time, and postseason play, the intensity is ratcheted up a little bit. There's a little bit more on the line. And when kids are able to experience that competition and to understand how to prepare for those types of games, that makes it easier at the JV and varsity level, I think.
Yeah, I know the WAMAC conference does a JV volleyball conference tournament at the end of the year. I think we can do that with basketball. And
Nobody does.
And I'm right there with you. Give the kids something to play for. This is why I'm a big advocate. I'd like to see us go back to consolation games in the state tournament, because I selfishly want to see more good basketball. But I think you lose that first game and then your state experience is over. Right? But hey, we can still play for third, or we can play for fifth. And those kids still have something to play for down there. And going back to the JV side of things, these kids, they go to practice in some of the smaller schools. Oftentimes they'll practice with the varsity and things like that, but never really get their chance to go out there and feel like they've earned it. An end of the season conference tournament, I think, if possible, for the JV level would really, it'd be exciting for all involved.
Mike, I would just add, Chris made a good point. Illinois, they have an eighth grade championship. I know it sounds ridiculous, but let me just put it this way. Every one of these top kids is playing AU ball. They're playing for a title all the time outside of high school at the lower levels. Maybe it's just a weekend medal. Maybe it's a trophy, you name it. When they come to school ball, there's no competition there. I think the reality of it is you got to realize it's not 1970 anymore. You got to adjust. And I think about how to do a JV tournament and an eighth grade tournament May sound radical and people go, oh, we don't want to do that. But I think you got to in order to grow the sport.
Yeah. And to your point, we're long past the days when playing for your hometown school really was the upper echelon. Now these kids have these clubs that they go play on, Nike Elite or whatever, which great for them. But again, that's not every kid, right? We still got the kids that are playing basketball for their school, and that's pretty much the end of it. But to reach those kids having something to play for at the end of the season. And I'm not sure if they keep records or standings in JV throughout the regular season, but that may be something also to start looking at. Are these kids just here? They went out for basketball. We got to give them some games, and here they are. What's the big deal? We're rolling focused on varsity. We've got to focus on all levels.
Right.
We've put an importance on all levels of basketball, from freshman to JV, all the way up to varsity. And that's what keeps the kids out, understanding that they're important, that they're playing for something, that they do matter, that the work that they're putting in, because it is hard. Basketball's hard. There's no denying that. Make it all worth their while. When March comes around and their season's over and they're getting ready for soccer or track or whatever the next sport may be, they can walk away from the sport saying, oh, God darn it, we earned it this year. And I feel really good about that. And I can't wait till next year.
I think that's a great place to end it.
I think so too. Guys, everybody, thank you for joining the Dr. Bowser basketball show today. Talking a little bit about how to grow the women's game in the state of Iowa. Mike, thanks for joining us. And
Thanks for having me.